Welcome to the second part of the Chocobreak tutorial. In this part, we'll be making the actual gameplay. So we're gonna go to our second frame that we created in the first video, and we're gonna drag and drop in the sky. And again, we're gonna change the property location or position to 0, 0. And now we're gonna add in some boundaries. So we're gonna use sugar verticals to create the boundaries. Let's just drag in the 3 sugar verticals. And we're gonna place the 2 verticals on each side and the horizontal on top. And we're gonna resize the horizontal a little bit. So if you right click, align in frame left, and then for the green, align in frame right. And then we're gonna align both of those on the bottom. And you can actually hold shift, select multiple, and I'm sorry. They have to be, yeah, I'll show you what I was trying to do. So if I was to align this to the top, and align this to the top, say there you were both even. And then if you hold shift and select, you can align both to the bottom. And they'll still be even. And for the horizontal, we're gonna align it to the horizontal center and to the top. And we're gonna resize it a little bit. And now we're gonna add in the score and lives board. And we're gonna shift and click both of them. And we're gonna change the width to 60 and the height to 50. And we're gonna place the lives to the left and to the top. So align to the left, align to the top, and we're gonna place the scores to the right and to the top. And just kind of drag and drop, not drag and drop, but resize them to fit that space. Now if we were to double click, we will need to add 2 items, the lives and a score item. And I'm just going to use the arrow keys to align these 2 objects. We want to align the score item to the furthest right as we can. And we're going to resize the lives to make them fit, to make the box fit a little more snug, and then drag and drop it inside of the lives board. And just use the arrow keys to get it to where you want it. And now we can actually start adding game elements. So we're going to be using milk as the blocks. And in order to copy these, we'll be using the duplicate command for 2 reasons. 1, we want all of the logic to be in the same brick. And 2, we have a limit in ClickTeam Fusion 2.5 free edition. So if we were to clone object, and we'll be making a 7 by 11 grid, so 7 rows, 11 columns, and then 5 spacing, we'll want to get this error saying that we have reached the limits of the free version. But for our logic, we will have to select logic for each individual brick. And if we use the duplicate command, and we're actually going to go 5 by 11 with 5 spacing in between. Or I'm sorry. There we go. Now we only have one milk object, and the logic will be the same for all of them. So when we go to destroy the milk object, we won't need one command per milk object. Then we're going to add a golden ball. I'm sorry, we're going to add a silver ball. And we're going to add the player. For the player, we're going to align him in the horizontal center to the bottom. Just place the ball over his umbrella. And as far as placement, that's all we will need in the frame. Now we can actually start programming. So go over to the event editor, and the first thing we're going to program is the collision logic. So we're going to right click on number 1 and insert a new command or comment. We're going to call it ball collision logic. Let me just drag and drop this in place so you guys can see it. Now you notice that I'm not using any spaces. That's because if you were to venture off into Unreal Engine or Unity or some other more in-depth game creation tool, engine, you cannot have spaces in your work. So you'll either have to capitalize the first letter of the new word or use an underscore. And we're going to create a new condition stating that when the ball collides with another object, and we're going to use the sugar vertical, we want the ball to bounce. So right click up under ball, movement. I'm sorry, we actually have to set the movements first. So in the ball property tab under movement, we're going to actually create a new movement first. So click on movement and then click the plus minus button. And we're going to rename this one to stopped. And then we're going to create a new movement and rename it bouncing ball. And with the bouncing ball movement selected, we're going to change it to bouncing ball and change a few properties of it. And we're done with the library and workspace, so we can just drag this up so we can see the properties better. And we're going to change the initial direction. We want to clear all, and we want to have these 4, so 13 through 10 and 3 through 6 selected. That way when the ball starts off, it doesn't come back at us. It'll launch upwards. And we also want to change the speed to 30. You can sorry, I'm having keyboard issues. One moment. Okay, it seems to fix itself. We're going to change the speed to 30. We're going to leave the number of angles at 32. What that changes is the initial directions. So if we were to go to here, you'll see that some squares are bigger than others, like this. These, every 4 squares are bigger than the rest. That will be 8. And then the midpoint between those two will be 16. We're going to change the randomizer to 15. And we're going to leave the security the same. Now the randomizer changes the random direction of the ball. So if it was to bounce upwards, 15% of the chance it will bounce in a different way than what it's supposed to be. And the security prevents the ball from staying in a loop. And then we're going to change the player movement. We're going to rename movement 0 to player. And we're not going to create a new movement for him. He just needs one. We're going to create an 8-directional movement, and we're going to select only the left and right directions. And we're going to change his speed to 45. And now if we recreate that bounce command, you'll see that it's not grayed out anymore. And then we're just going to copy and paste this. And we're going to change the sugar vertical to the green one for the second command and to the horizontal for the third command. And then paste it 2 more times. Just drag and drop these down here. We're going to change this one to the player. And change this one to the milk. We're going to go ahead and add sound. So right click, sample, play sample, and you're going to go to your files. I downloaded this from ClickTeam, or I have a ClickTeam version. So I'm going to go to my PC, Windows, program files, 86, Steam apps, common, ClickTeam Fusion, tutorials, Chocobreak. And we want to add the, let me resize this. I want to add the pop 1. Or I'm sorry. Yeah, the pop 1. And we're just going to copy and paste, or we're just going to drag and drop these to all 3. And then for the player and the ball, we're going to use the pop 4. So sample, play sample, and we're going to browse. It should stay in the same folder, so we're just going to use pop 4. And then for the ball and the milk, we're going to use the impact sound. And then we're going to add one more command to the ball logic. And we want to test the ball leaving the play area. So when the ball's position, test position, we're going to use the arrow pointing out. The arrow pointing out states when it leaves this side of the frame. And since it's at the bottom, it will be when the ball leaves the bottom of the frame. And we're going to play a sound. We're going to play down. We're going to change the ball movement. Under movement. And this is kind of off frame so you guys can't see, but it's movement, multiple movements, select movement. And we're going to select stopped. And then we're going to change the position as well. So position, select position, and we want to drag and drop this to about where the ball is already. And then as for the milk command, we're going to go back up and we're going to destroy the milk. Now, this is where we get into a problem of ordering your events. So if we were to play this, or actually let me add a testing command just to show you. You do not have to do this. So if we were to play this, I actually need to set the initial direction. One moment. So if we were to play this, you'll notice that the ball just... Okay, it actually works. But if we were to go back to here, and we were to change this bounce and put it below the destroy, you'll notice that the ball just glides through the milks. Because the program does not have time to read those commands before a new event happens. I'm just going to delete this, and we're going to go back up to here, move the bounce back up. And they'll be all for the ball. Now we're going to add a new comment. We're going to call it player collision logic. And we're just going to need two commands for this one. So we're going to need when the player collides with another object, and we're just going to use the two sugar verticals. We want him to stop. So right click under player, movement, stop. Just going to copy and paste and change the sugar vertical to the green one. And they'll be all for the player. Now, we also want to add a score command. So if we go back up to collision between the ball and milk, under player, we want to add to the score. So add to score. We're going to add 10. And when the ball leaves the play area, we want to subtract a life. So number of lives, subtract, and we're going to subtract 1 life. And I actually misspelled player. Let me just go back and change that. And now if we were to actually play the game or run the frame, just add that testing command back 1 moment. Now if we were to run the game, you'll notice that, you'll notice that when we hit, we'll add 10 to the score, and when the ball leaves, we lose a life. Now, so we don't have to press space to start, we're going to add a initialization stage. So let's add a comment. We're actually going to make this a group of commands. So we're going to insert a group event, and you'll pop up this dialog box, and we're just going to call it initialization. we're actually going to add one more thing to the frame. So if you double click, we're going to add a counter. Just resize it a little bit, and we're going to add it in the center of the frame. So the horizontal center and the vertical center. We're going to change the properties. So we're going to set the initial value to 3, the minimum to 0, and the maximum to 3. We're going to change the color a little bit. We're going to change it to gray, particularly this light gray. And we're just going to change 0, 1, 2, and 3. So first, we're going to use every command. And for every 1 second, we want to subtract 1 from the counter. And when the counter equals 0, we want to change the movement. And we're going to use movement, and we want to use multiple movements, select movement. And we're going to select bouncing ball. Now, if you were to use next, it will stay in the continuous loop of switching between stopped and bouncing ball, since the counter will always equal 0. And we're going to go back up to the leave play area on the bottom. We're going to use a reappear command. So right click under counter, visibility, make object reappear. I'm sorry that you can't see this. And when the counter equals 0, we want to make it disappear. So same situation, right click, visibility, make invisible. And that should be it. Just go ahead and test that out. We have to set the direction. So let's add when the counter equals 1, we're going to set the direction of the ball. So right click, directions, select directions. And we want to select between 12 and 10 and between 4 and 1. Or I'm sorry, 4 and 6. And that way it will be aimed upwards. And I actually forgot. We need to move this up. That way it reads that first. And now it should stop. We're going to change this command. We're going to delete. So double click, and we're going to delete the select movement stop command. And under initialization, we're going to state that when the counter equals 3, oh, I know why it wasn't working. Just go add that command again. You can control Z to undo, and that command will come back. Since the counter equals 3, it's automatically changing back to 2. So when the player leaves, when the ball leaves the bottom, we're going to add a command that states set the counter to 3. We're just going to move that up. And now that should work. And now the last thing that we have to add is winning and losing. So we're going to add a comment and call it death. And we're going to make a new condition that states when the player lives reaches 0, we're going to jump to the next frame. And if you were to make a game with multiple levels, you'll jump to the frame that you want. But since this is only a 3-frame application, it's okay to use next frame. And we're going to make a comment winning and a new condition, and we're going to test for milk. And we're going to use picker count, have all milk been destroyed. And if that is true, then we will jump to the next frame again. Or sorry, we'll go to the next frame. So right click, next frame. And we're going to go ahead and add one more frame and run the application in full so you can see the music and the transition between the title menu and the game menu. We're actually going to rename this. We're going to rename it gameplay. And that'll be all for this tutorial. We will finish up the game in the next part. See you.